Okay, so everyone, I am going to make a start, and as everybody joins, I will just gradually let everybody in as they join us over time. Good to see everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I am Nicola Salter. I'm an empowerment coach and mentor, and what that means is that I work with women to help redefine themselves, to find new careers, new directions. New inspirations, new directions, if you like, in their life that is more fulfilling and enables them to be of service in a way that they really want to be. Now, part of this work is to help break free of limiting emotions that can hold you back. It's fundamental to any form of coaching or mentoring that any of you do, that you realize that you need a strong platform of emotional wellness. Emotional wellness that will have you committed and able to see through whatever it is you're wanting to create in your life. So, over the last 23 years, I've been working with various tools and methods to help these women identify, define emotions that have become their story, that they're living by, that are becoming detrimental to their success. And what I want to do this evening is to show you some of the ways in which you can start identifying and defining emotions that are holding you back based on the work that I've been doing over this last number of years, quite a few, and to help you start understanding why it is that you can often feel stuck or paralyzed with self-doubt, low self-esteem, low self-value. We know how those negative emotions go, don't we, that can hold you back. So let's kick off with beginning to look at what these negative emotions are. And later in the session, I'm going to be answering two big questions, which I shared in the email that went out. A couple of questions that people have asked in terms of helping them to define and understand more clearly why certain emotions are holding them back. And I'll be doing this and talking them through this so that they can get a better picture and understanding of how they can break free of these. So, negative emotions. All right, negative emotions are reactions that we've had, and I'm going to dive into this deeper in a moment, and come up as emotions that could be lack of confidence, self-doubt, low self-esteem, the need for perfectionism. The need for perfectionism, often walking away from a project if it hasn't gone entirely to your liking without seeing it through, with this need for perfection and not allowing a project to take shape because you've deemed it that it's not going to work and it hasn't met your standards and you're walking away and leaving it. So perfectionism can be very paralyzing and sabotaging your success. Fear of messing up. Yeah, fear of messing up is often something that many of us don't want to get into a project or a new way of doing something because we have an inherent fear that we're not going to do well at it. And that often comes from a previous experience that we've had that's led to this particular story. So each of these negative emotions that you can see on the screen, victim, coming from a place of victim, oh, well, it never works for me, it hasn't worked in the past, is definite victim mentality. Low self-worth, well, who's going to listen to me? That's often something I hear a lot from women about. Why should I step into something new? Why should I do this when she's already doing it so successfully? And not really understanding their value or worth, that they have what I call low-hanging fruit, special gifts, special unique abilities that they too could bring to the table, and that we would be missing out on if they didn't jump into offering these gifts that they have. Imposter syndrome. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced this, but imposter syndrome of looking around again at everybody who is successful, yourself being very successful. I've worked with a lot of women in powerful management positions and heading up organizations who still think they shouldn't be holding those positions because they feel they're in this place of the imposter syndrome where they're actually lying, that they're not good enough to be there. And they're paddling like crazy to keep up, when really what they're doing is they're continuously comparing themselves with others, and they have this fear of not being seen. So there's lots of deeper emotions that go under these negative emotions that I'm talking about. Often self-sabotage, anger, frustration, jealousy. These are like the overarching labels of something that's preventing us from moving forward. But quite often, for example, under anger, we can say we're angry about something, and we have anger about someone else being successful, or anger that we didn't quite make it on something we were working on. But that anger really is what I call love that's been disappointed. All right? Love that's been disappointed. And the anger is a residual effect from another key emotion that's much deeper and perhaps in the subconscious that you're not quite aware of. It's a trigger, if you like. Frustration, jealousy, feeling overwhelmed. I know most of us have that feeling of overwhelm these days, and normally that's because we're just not setting ourselves enough boundaries. And I do this. I do this a lot. I have to remind myself continuously to stop and create space for myself so I don't get overwhelmed and then exhausted. Another negative emotion could be sadness, not feeling enough, and then coming from what I call this lack mentality. This lack mentality of, well, I don't deserve this, or I don't deserve to make money, or money won't come to me because it hasn't done so before. And we're going to dive into tonight where these emotions might be coming from, where they start, and then what we can do about them. So this is going to be tonight like a roadmap to help you start diving deeper into understanding your emotions. And I'm going to also introduce you towards the end of the session a way in which you can use tools to break through these, and also working with me one-on-one as a bonus, I would say, to understand more fully, this is my negative emotion, and then what's driving this? How can I break free of this so it doesn't completely overwhelm my life, sabotage me, and I can't move forward? So let's just begin by changing your story, okay? Your story is how you currently behave in your emotional wellness, all right? It drives you. This story that you've created for yourself has started somewhere back in time, and I call it a story because it might be true for you, but it's really just a story that you can change. And your negative fears started somewhere back in time from an event or a reaction that you experienced, either as a child or at work or with a partner or a colleague. And you can look at these as stories, these reactions that you've had, because they've become true for you. But as I said, they're not necessarily true. So it was your choice in a moment, in a split second, to react to an event or circumstance, all right? And then you made a choice from that. So what does that look like? This looks like perhaps someone who passed away, who died, who was very close to you. And there's a lot of grief and a feeling of loss, of course, around that. And you had a reaction of that. But what's happened now is that perhaps you stay in the loss and the grief of it, because it's difficult for you to break that pattern. You might feel guilty that if you don't feel this loss or grief, that it shows that perhaps you no longer care for that person who passed away. So many different reasons and so many choices that we make. But your reactions travel so much faster than you can speak or even think. And these reactions get logged in your nervous system as frequencies of energy and get converted into thought patterns, so that eventually you become, this person lost, this person died, and you lost this person, but you stay in this victim place of loss. Possibly because, as I said, you think that if you moved out of it, it would be disrespectful to that person who's passed in their memory. So you see where I'm going with this. It's that your choice to react to an event or a circumstance every single minute of the day will stay with you as a long-term memory if you choose to make that happen and continually live in that pattern. So the reaction and then the choice that you've made now begin to ruminate in your brain as you turn it over and over. It's a neural pathway in the brain that becomes like a track that you've carved out in a vinyl record. You remember those vinyl records? I know, I'm old enough to remember those. Every track was a song, and it's like your brain and the neural patterns in your brain, you start playing that song over and over again. That's the track that you're creating until you decide to change the song, okay? Now, it isn't your fault, all right? This is not your fault. We are all wired this way. It's in our DNA, okay? It's in your DNA to stay in the negative. And I'll tell you why in a second. Your brain will sabotage you as much as it can with fear, anxiety, and lack of confidence because, believe it or not, it thinks it's keeping you safe by putting you in a space of fight or flight or freeze. And this is a primordial human response to keep our human species safe. So this is not your fault that you've got negative emotions, all right? This is how you are wired. Because anything new or anything that reminds you consciously or subconsciously of an event or situation from way back in time will create some kind of resistance within you. And we call this a trigger, a resistance to make a change. Your brain wants to keep you safe. It doesn't want you to change because it could be dangerous out there. So it has you living in fear. And most of you will resonate with this, I think, that I know first thing in the morning when you wake up, you can have some pretty negative thoughts as soon as you start waking up. And perhaps not looking forward to the day or feeling heavy or feeling gloomy. It's a typical response from coming from the dream state to waking up in the morning and getting prepared for the day because your brain's still in its primordial, well, not totally primordial state, we've grown a lot since then, but it's still a reaction of having you stay in one place and stay safe. So your brain's holding you in a state of survival. Your brain then sends out neurotransmitters around your body, either to feel good based on a positive emotion you're having, something that's uplifting, to a neurotransmitter that will be a reaction to any sadness or anger that you're having or doubt or anxiety. And these neurotransmitters are cortisol based and they prepare us to survive and run away from the enemy. All right? It's a negative reaction. So when you're in this place of self-doubt, panic, anxiety, you're creating inflammation in your body because there's a heightened response from your brain trying to keep you in a place of survival and hypervigilance so that you won't go and get eaten by one of those prehistoric animals or bears that we used to face back in the day, and it would keep you safe. So negative emotions can keep us in our fight or flight or freeze frame, all right? However, when you choose to come into more of a renewing state, renewing emotions that are positive emotions like calm, peacefulness, nourishment, joy, freedom, okay? They release DHEA. And I'm not going to even try and pronounce. It's in brackets for you here, the neurotransmitter that is, but you can see it spelled out for you. And DHEA is a very nourishing neurotransmitter, and it helps to renew, rejuvenate, and calm us, all right? And when we're in that space, it's easier to have clearer communication, a clear mind, so we're not foggy, positivity, and more rejuvenation. So your fears and negative emotions hold you in a state of this survival, anticipation, preparedness, if you like, for something terrible to happen. So that you can get out of there fast. So when you're in this terrible situation, your body can go into that mode to escape and run away from whatever it is that could be highly damaging to you. Well, of course, for the most part, this doesn't happen too often. When I work with the Navy SEAL veterans and the military, of course, they were hypervigilant most of their time while they were at war and at service. And all of these neurotransmitters were continuously pumping through their bodies. So when they come home, it's very difficult for them to find that renewing rejuvenation place, because they're waiting for the shoe to drop. They're waiting for the bomb to go off. They're waiting for the attack to take place. Now, we have that on a much lesser degree in our daily activities, based on the experiences that we've had in the past and that we believe to be true. I believe over the past, and what I've been seeing with my clients is that, yes, we've been given negative reactions and limiting emotions to keep us in the state of preparedness and to keep us safe, all right? So remember, this is not your fault, and we're going to look at how we can choose to change them. But I also think for us these days, having these negative reactions helps us grow our personalities and our skills. And we learn so much from our negativity. Once you start to join the adventure of being curious about your emotions and how they drive you, I think you're going to find this is actually quite a great adventure. And it teaches you so much about yourself. These negative emotions like self-doubt, low self-esteem, low self-value are, once you recognizing them, showing you that you direct your day through this window, through this story, and bring more people in to you that will reflect more of that you manifest and pull more of those similar experiences around you when you're living in those stories. And this is how people fall into their victim place. It's like, it just never works. It just keeps going wrong. It's because of their mindset. And I could do a whole nother session on frequency of mindset. But resetting your mindset and choosing a new story creates a whole new outer world for you. And something that's a lot more positive as we transform these negative emotions and we become more connected with others, and we can use our strengths in the services that we provide each other. All right. Now, that could be a service that's paid or non-paid, or you're just helping someone as a volunteer. It's taking your negative emotions, turning them around into something that's renewing, and then watching how this floods and impacts the rest of your life in a positive way. So one way of doing this in terms of changing your story is to understand where your negative reactions were born and beginning to parent yourself, self-care, to begin the letting go process of one overriding emotion that's really standing in your way. So learning to identify one key overriding reaction or emotion that is limiting you is where you begin. So I want you to meet your wounded child, all right? Everyone has a wounded child. And this inner wounded child is this little person, this little child within you that had some experiences and events when they were young that you are still carrying around with you now, and have become your filter, your window, if you like, in terms of how you see the world. So understanding your why to break your limiting beliefs is the first place. So what's a wounded child? Well, for most of us, when we were children, we were always meeting our parents' ideals and expectations so that we could feel safe. This is a basic instinct that we have. We would do anything our parents told us to please them, to feel safe, okay? So even if that meant going against our truest self or our beliefs, even at a young age, even though we would say, but Mom, but Dad, this doesn't seem right. I think we should be doing this, right? We would come back to what Mom and Dad would tell us and share with us to do. And we would follow through against sometimes our better judgment, even though we were children. We have an inherent gift to know what's right and what's wrong. So, starting with your wounded child and beginning to understand how you were as a child and the experiences you had will help you define these emotions that you're having now that are holding you back. All right, and we'll go into this in a bit more. So, those negative reactions with where you are now were basically beginning when you were small with your wounded child. And if we continue to hold on to these limitations, we'll sabotage our success for whatever success means to you. It could be work, it can be life, relationships, whatever success means to you. Okay. So these positive and negative life experiences shape our emotions, our belief patterns, and they become our story. And these stories motivate our choices and our actions. So you can improve your story, you can improve your life when you begin to understand or decode the underlying fears or emotions from your past that your wounded child is holding on to. So this might be, for example, let's give you some examples here. Just off the top of my head here, this could be something like, not wanting to be seen, because that's coming up later actually as one of the questions, not wanting to be seen, all right, now. You don't want to be seen. You have a fear of being in public. You have a fear of doing something that's going to put the spotlight on you, okay, and you have no idea why. So you might want to look back at when you were a child and what happened when you were seen? What happened when you showed your true self when you were a kid? All right. And what showed up for you in terms of, were you ridiculed? Were you pulled down? Were you judged? Were you criticized? To a point now where you're in post-traumatic stress, literally as an adult, because in your nervous system and your brain, your story is, if I show up and I'm seen, everyone around me is going to ridicule me, right? That's your story, because that's the belief pattern that you've grown up with and grown to believe to be true. Well, of course, it's not true, and you can change that with a new choice. But right now, you're absolutely adamant that's how it is. So breaking this story and moving away from this story will help you move into whatever it is you want to move into, and understand that you're not going to be ridiculed or judged at this time, and help turn the volume down on the intensity of this reaction that you're having. So all of these emotions you're having are continuously like the sub-driver in your life. These are the drivers helping you make choices in your relationships, your career, and life. And I know, I hear it all the time from my clients. They'll say, I can't believe I was married to Joe Smith for 25 years and we are just so different now. We have nothing in common. Because you chose Joe Smith 25 years ago when you were in a very different emotional state. You chose Joe Smith to mirror back to you some of those things that were familiar to you, probably from childhood, which may have been toxic, but you didn't know that at the time. So you grow with Joe Smith during the journey, and you grow together, and you start to outgrow each other as your emotional well-being and wellness changes. All right, so a lot of times people can change but stay together because the love keeps them together, which is beautiful, and they can change simultaneously and carry on life's journey still together, but in a different way. So you made those choices based on your emotional wellness, but not really realizing that. And I think all of this should be taught at kindergarten, so that we can all be prepared as we get older to understand how this all works. So observing yourself and coming to understand how to connect to and label your emotions will help you disconnect from self-sabotage. And you need to give your wounded child permission to know that you're not the victim, because you have choices, right? You've got that little self sitting there, literally like this, and you can say to that little self, hey, Jane, you have choices. We can stay like this, or we can take baby steps to start moving out of this into more of a renewing emotion where we can thrive. Now, labeling your emotions is something that most people have a hard time with because we don't have the experience, right? We don't have the experience of understanding how this works. And what you want to do is to start listening to yourself and watch when you feel hurt, all right? Or angry, or you feel abandoned, or you might be not seen or not heard. Observe your feelings. Start to stand back and watch yourself, okay? Observe yourself. It's not that you're not taking part in life, but observe yourself during interaction, either with your husband, boyfriend, partner. Observe yourself when you're at work and you notice that anger starts bubbling up within you over a conversation or an event. It's like, what is going on right now? And you can ask your little self. So, little Nicola, what's going on right now? Why are you feeling like this? Why are you reacting in this way? What's coming out of your mouth right now? Okay, well, you are certainly triggered here. Do you feel threatened and do you feel attacked? Quite often we can start being defensive when we're feeling attacked because we're feeling controlled by another human being. And that control might come from a previous experience that you've had in the past, all right, where someone tried to control you and you step into your defensiveness and you start justifying yourself, you start creating a storm, you get angry, and the person on the other side of the fence has no idea what's going on. They're just seeing a very angry person facing them right now, not knowing that you've been triggered. So diving into, okay, why am I having this reaction? Where is this coming from? Now, it's not always automatically that easy to work out where this might be coming from and why. But starting with the observation of, okay, this doesn't feel good, and do I want to change this? Okay, so whatever triggers you to feel this way is your autonomic nervous system's response to cues of danger around you, and it's a way of defending or protecting yourself. And that's what your brain is doing right now. You're going to see your brain in a new way, I hope, after this session. So I want you to stay curious. It's important that you stay curious about yourself, and curious is the word for this evening, all right? This is not ego-based. Staying curious is an adventure about your self-growth and personal transformation, about your patterns. As you start to observe, you become the expert, right? Once you become the expert of being able to know yourself the best without a therapist telling you what you might be thinking, right? Therapy's good, talk therapy's great, but to be able to really understand yourself and then go and do some talk therapy so you can be really clear in the session and what it is you want to achieve really helps the therapist direct you in a good direction. So staying curious, opening your mind and getting curious about these triggers that are going on. Write them down in a journal. Write down what these triggers are and look at what the underlying reason might be. I did a group call with 50 women today, and I opened up the floor and one woman joined in and she said, I want to work on breaking free of my overwhelm. I said, oh, okay. And she told me exactly what was going on in her life, and there was a lot going on that she was juggling, absolutely. And I said, well, what's the opposite of being overwhelmed? And she said, well, confident. I said, that's great. That's great. So I said to her, why are you feeling overwhelmed? And she said, and she told me again what was going on. I said, yeah, but with all these things going on in your life, you're overwhelmed, but dive deeper than that. What is going on under that overwhelmed feeling? And she started to cry and she said, I don't feel supported. I feel unsupported. And it was a very emotional moment. And I said, okay, so you're not feeling supported. When you were a child, when was it that you didn't feel supported? And she said, when I found my stepfather who committed suicide, and I had to work through all the paperwork, handle all of the death proceedings on my own when she was young. And ever since then, she has been repeating this pattern of doing, going, because that's what she did when she was a child and that's what she had to do, feeling totally unsupported, which has led to her feeling overwhelmed. And until she was able to put those two things together, she'd been operating from thinking, oh yeah, I'm overwhelmed, which most of us do. But understanding the deeper pattern of why helps us really break free of that core issue that's creating the problem in the first place. And this is where I want you to get clever. I want you to open your mind and get curious about your triggers and what the underlying reason is that's making you feel anxious, unsafe, panicked, sad, guilty, unlovable, all of those yummy emotions that we carry around with us. And as you understand these triggers a little bit more, you can start working on what you want your new response to be. Okay? And what that means is being compassionate with yourself, all right? Self-soothing, self-parenting, being kind to your wounded child. It's like, okay, all right, so for this lady today, she was like, okay, I get it now. All right, so I am going to stop taking on everything and feeling like I am the one who has to do this, because that was creating that feeling of not being supported, because she was pushing so hard, because that's what she did as a child. It's the same pattern. And her decision, her intention was to be, all right, now I get a clear idea of where this might be coming from. I'm going to stop trying to take care of my parents, take care of the kids, get them off to college, and do my work and build out a business all at the same time. I recognize that I have priorities and a way in which I can schedule my week out, and learning to trust that if everything doesn't happen at the same time, it's okay. All right? It's okay. The world is not going to fall apart. So these are the lessons that we start to learn. I'm a big one. I'm exactly the same boat. I pushed very hard in my teenage years with family things that were going on. It was definitely a pattern that stayed with me. I'm hoping that I've managed that pattern somewhat better now, so that I'm using it more constructively. All right? You don't have to walk away from it completely. You can use pieces of those belief patterns in a very positive way to help things happen in your life. So check into your life and see where and when that wound gets reopened. All right? By whom and what events specifically trigger this. And keep a journal of what's going on for you. This is a process of self-discovery. Then you can change your reaction. And most of the time I find that reminding yourself, I am safe, and breathe and lean into a renewing feeling of, I am safe, I trust, okay, this is new, all right? But a renewing feeling of a situation or a place that makes you feel better. So you've got a moment of overwhelm going on, right? Okay, I'm overwhelmed. Breathe deeply, as deeply as you can, and lean into a renewing feeling that's opposite of overwhelm. So this feeling could be joy about a pet or an animal, all right? It could be excitement about the kids coming home from school. It could be the joy of traveling to a favorite place that you love. Anything that makes you feel better will create a flood of renewing neurotransmitters through your body. Okay, so the breath and breathing deeply, and then going into that renewing place. So for example, frustration. Why am I frustrated? Oh, I'm triggered by so-and-so who's making me feel really frustrated. Well, it's not really so-and-so who's making you frustrated. It's something deeper than that that's being triggered within you. An irritation, perhaps. A resentment, maybe, from when you didn't get what you wanted when you were younger or a few years back. And that frustration is like, okay, that's here. This is a trigger. So I'm going to breathe deeply through this frustration, and I'm going to lean into a renewing feeling of being on the beach. Or my renewing feeling is watching a whale go by on Zuma Beach. Like, wow, that was amazing. Distracting your brain and just calming your nervous system down. Okay, very simple to do, not brain surgery. Okay, very simple to do indeed. So let me just move this here and I will move to the next slide. So I want you to remember that your life journey is an adventure, and the best self-care you can give yourself is to come home to your true nature, right? The real you. Who are you? Who are you really? Not who you think you are, but who you really are. And letting go of all those stories you've repeated in your mind of loss, victimhood, guilt, shame, and that you've become because you've been telling yourself these stories for years based on your experiences. Your true essence has been covered up with all of those labels that you've been giving yourself, right? Not good enough, self-doubt. Keep moving forward and putting one foot in front of the other, and you will get there with these very simple steps that I've been giving you, just step by step. And it's very important to avoid comparing yourself to others and stepping into what I call is the art of not minding. And many of my clients who I work with take this as a mantra, and they actually stick it up on the refrigerator with magnets of not minding. Now, not minding doesn't mean not caring. It means focusing on what you want to do and being happy that others are focusing on what they need to do as well. All right? So it's not comparing yourself to someone. So not minding that Jane Doe's just built a really amazing business and that you haven't yet, right? That's not minding. You are really happy that she's built this business and she's inspiring you through her commitment and her motivation. Maybe she's in a relationship. Maybe she just bought a new house. Maybe she's just happy and peaceful. It doesn't even have to be material. If it's material, that's fine, but it doesn't have to be. Maybe she's just very peaceful and meditates every day, okay? So not minding, the art of not minding is a beautiful, selfless way and a great positive, energetic way of bringing all your focus back to yourself. Being grateful and excited for someone else, but also knowing that you can do the same thing too. So meeting your wounded child, really understanding that she's had some stuff that she's been through, right? And she really wants to let go of. And you're choosing as the adult self to help her hold on to it in whatever capacity or belief patterns that you have. So as you move forward and you're staying curious and you're in the adventure of life and self-discovery, I want you to create boundaries for yourself, right? Boundaries are so important. And reducing exposure to those things that you know set you off. So you can then create a new response and learn to develop a new reaction as you set boundaries for yourself and don't get immersed into those same situations on a daily basis. It's like that old saying, it's a sign of madness driving a car into a brick wall, expecting a different reaction the whole time. Well, the bricks are always going to come down if you drive into the brick wall. It's the same thing with yourself when you know you're in a situation that's going to trigger you and set you off. So if you know there's a certain conversation point that triggers you and your husband to have heated conversations, avoid them and come at it in a new way, a new perspective, rather than coming from your wounded, needy child place. Come from the adult, more expansive place of looking to move together and work together on this. Now, you can use essential oils if any of you like aromatherapy. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Essential oils are beautiful aromatic oils directly taken from plants that help you to calm your brain or uplift your brain and release different neurotransmitters that will make you feel good or make you feel peaceful. And you can use these essential oils as part of the tools that you use during your self-discovery process. So you would use lavender, for example, to release serotonin from the brain or dopamine to help you calm down. you'd use grapefruit essential oil to release endorphins. They're very euphoric. They make you feel uplifted and more positive. And you would just simply put a drop each on your wrists. You could put some in your hands and just smell it, because it's the process of smell, the olfactory process, that stimulates the brain to release those different neurotransmitters. Now, this takes me into the online program that I've got based on everything that I've just been sharing with you, but introduces you to some really effective tools to continue breaking free of these emotions that are holding you back. And I'm going to offer this to you today. It's a course that I've designed and distilled all of my work, all of my years of mentoring and empowerment coaching in emotional wellness and helping people redefine themselves. And it's an online program where you've got 6.5 hours of self-therapy in your own private setting, working at your own pace to discover more about your emotions, digging deeper and diving deeper based on what I've shared with you today, and your reactions, with methods that will save you hundreds of dollars on therapy. Seriously, there's videos on breath work, tapping techniques, restoration pose, and also the use of essential oils, which are powerful tools for helping you reset your brain. So the emotions that I cover in the program run from anger, anxiety, and confidence, self-esteem issues, right through to mood balancing your space, dealing with post-traumatic stress, panic attacks, how to manage and improve your reaction to your triggers, and basically reduce the volume of these emotions that are holding you stuck. So there's a lot of relaxation, grounding techniques, things that will help reduce your stress, burnout, which I know most of us have, and triggers. So you get to understand at an even more deeper level how to decode your emotions, literally, and then with tools to help break free of these and let go of those paralyzing emotions that are really holding you back. So it helps you to empower yourself, this course, it doesn't have any fancy apps or tech, all right? It's a straightforward program you follow online. You get the link from me, and then you work through these methods, which would help you, for example, with on-the-spot methods. If you're at a party or you're with friends or a family dinner or in the car and you feel this anxiety and stress overwhelming you and you don't have access to any electronics or an app, you can do these on-the-spot methods immediately. And you can also use these methods for your long-term care, where you've defined why you keep getting triggered, where this emotion might be coming from. You've managed to put a label on what this is, and you can work on years of frustration, resentment, irritation by using some of these techniques, so that you can dial down the volume, as I've said before, on these emotions that are really holding you back. So it's great because you get to rely on yourself on the spot. You don't have to book a session for a therapist to go and see someone and wait another week. You can be in the moment with this, which is the best place to be with your brain, and tackle this situation immediately. And it really helps you to understand more about yourself. It helps you to understand how to use natural methods. There's no drugs or meds. And even if you are taking medications, you can use these methods alongside whatever you're taking. And it all sits together fine, right? One's not going to hurt the other, and that includes the essential oils. So in addition to this, what I'm also offering you is the opportunity to work through the course and then have a free bonus one-on-one 30-minute session with me to review what you've been through, or if you prefer, to purchase the course and then have the free 30-minute session with me. We'll go through the course in overview. I'll look at what you're experiencing and I'll point you in the right direction and give you tips and hints for where you could be spending most of your time for changing your story and the mindfulness methods that you could be using. So you can reach and find out more about the course at nicolasalter.com/course. You will receive an email from me after this evening, and you will get a link to the course. And once you purchase the course, that will give you access to schedule your 30-minute bonus call with me, and then we can go through the course in more detail and what is a match for you and what is the transformation that you're looking for. Okay, so it's just 6 hours and 40 minutes of your time that you do at your own pace in your own home. It's a great way of taking care of your own emotional wellness and a great investment for your long-term health. Now, let's just move into a couple of the questions that were sent in to me today. And one was, I don't think they're on tonight, so I'll respond to them by email afterwards. But one's from a lady called C. Rowe. I don't have a first name, but C. Rowe. She said, I want to be successful, but as soon as I get close to completing a project or a pitch, I sabotage myself by not following through. Why am I afraid of success? This is very similar to the example I gave you earlier. So I would encourage you to go back to your wounded child, right? Place when you were younger, and look into what your fear of being visible was around. What happened to you as a child when you were young? What negative experiences took place when you showed up and you wanted to be seen? Check into what was going on. Now, were you ridiculed? As I said earlier, were you pulled down? Were you laughed at? Were you told that you were messing up or that you were not perfect? All right. These are just some of the stories we're given as kids and that then stay with us. So I would work on, perhaps, let's say you identify really that you have this fear of success, but you have this real fear of being seen, right? That is the fear of success, because success means you're being seen, right? So look into the visibility piece and what happened when you were a kid, when you made yourself visible. And then if you decide to purchase the course, what will happen is I'm going to show you the technique that you can use to break free of that fear of being visible and that fear of being ridiculed that's underlying this fear of success. So you see how we dive deep on this? It's like, okay, I'm afraid of success, but what goes on deeper than that? Where do we go within our wounded child? Or as a teenager, teenage years, what happened to me? Why do I feel this way? Why am I repeating that pattern? So hopefully that was helpful to you. And then T. Shore. T. Shore said, I just never seem to make enough money, and I always feel afraid of money. All right. That's a good question too. So interestingly, and I could do a whole nother session on this, money is your friend, everybody. Money is your friend. Money works as hard for you as you work for it. Seriously, if you let it. Money is a flow of energy. Now, I think in this situation, my sense is, as a wounded child, going back to your wounded child, I want you to look at how your parents were around money. What was their family values around money that you picked up from them? Perhaps your father or mother was an under-earner, as I call them, an under-earner where they didn't expect much, or their belief pattern was you've got to work really hard to make money. And as a child, you picked up on that from your parents. So go and look at what you inherited from your parents, okay? What did I inherit from my parents in terms of this emotion that I'm feeling, in terms of feeling afraid of money? Now, money also comes down to your self-value and your self-esteem. I see money as a reflection of our self-value and self-esteem in the world, right? As a mirror image. I see money as wanting to flow to us if we allow it and step out of our inherited values from our parents that are sabotaging us, or inherited values from, it could be conversations you had with your friends when you were younger, and dropping those belief patterns that you are deserving. So that's the other piece of this. This is about the renewing feeling of being deserving and having the self-value and the self-worth to know that. All right, those are two great questions. I hope that was helpful. I hope to hear from you and hope that that was good direction for you. Now, to finish this evening, I love to give like an affirmation every month to all my clients in the groups that I work with, because I do feel like having a monthly mantra helps us to rewire our brain for success, right? To change our story. And as I said earlier, having renewing emotions, which I talk about a lot in the online course that I have, and how to step into those renewing emotions to rewire your brain, would be something like, I am freedom. And repeating this daily to remind yourself that you yourself are the co-creator of your success and life, right? You are not the victim. It's so important to keep reminding you of this. When I first found this out a long time ago, it was just like the light switch went on. You know, it sounds so obvious when you hear it, but sometimes when you're living in those stories of negativity, you can't see the wood for the trees, right? So someone said to me, well, just make another choice. You know, you're creating your success in your life. Just change it. Make a different choice. So I am freedom is one of my personal mantras that I say every day, when perhaps sometimes I feel a little pulled back or a little stifled or a little overwhelmed, wherever that overwhelm's coming from. And I'm into like, I am freedom. This is my new choice. I am freedom. So I want you to repeat this mantra to yourself as often as you can. This brings me to the end of our session this evening. I can't thank you enough for joining me tonight to listen to this information, and I hope it has served you. If you would like to reach out, you can reach me at my email, which is salternicola@gmail.com. And I will send out a recording of tonight's session so that you can replay. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. It would be lovely to hear from you. And I will send you the link to the course so that you can decide if you want to make an investment for yourself, which is only $99. It's just $99, reduced from $199, for this 6.5-hour program, which I think you're going to find very beneficial. Everything in there I use. I walk the walk, I talk the talk, I still use the methods I show in this course, and I think you will find it very effective and convenient to start understanding more about yourself in your self-discovery process. You deserve it, and if you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I will see you very soon. Thank you.